Have you ever thought about how life would be like if you were to work and live in another country? And if you were to think about it, a few key consideration points would be what would the cost of living be like and what are the working opportunities in that particular country. In today's video, we're going to explore the pros and cons of living and working in these particular cities in the Southeast Asia region. And these cities are Kuala Lumpur in Malaysia, Bangkok in Thailand, and Singapore in Singapore. If you have been following our channel for a while, you know that my wife, friend and I travel to many countries, especially in these three countries, Thailand, Malaysia and Singapore, to cover a lot of various data points on cost of living, retirement needs, working salaries, and many more. So, we are going to provide you with a high-level ranking system for these three cities, Bangkok, Kuala Lumpur and Singapore, so that if you do choose to want to work in these countries or these cities in particular, you will have a better understanding. Hi everyone, I'm John, one half of the Corporate Breakout Couple. Just a short introduction, my wife, friend and I retired early at the age of 40 in 2020 in Singapore. We then shifted over to Penang, Malaysia, where my wife is from. So do follow our channel as we create a lot of exciting content, especially on the Southeast Asia region, and we love to compare the various costs, working conditions, cross borders. We would love your support for us by subscribing to this channel and do hit the like button for this video as well. First, let's establish the similarities between these three cities, which are Bangkok, Kuala Lumpur and Singapore, and do note that these are all Southeast Asian countries, and in terms of ethnic diversity, in terms of way of living, it can be very different. So do note that if you were to live and work in these three cities in particular, the experience can be very different. The first common similarity is these are all capital cities of their country. Bangkok, for example, is part of Bangkok Metropolis or the 76th province in Thailand. Kuala Lumpur is in the state of Wilayah, one of the 13 states in West and East Malaysia. For Singapore, because it's very small, it's an island, it's also a city and a country by itself. Therefore, because all three are vibrant and cosmopolitan cities, the pool and continuous attraction of foreigners in the form of working expats and tourists is always there. Another similarity is all three cities provide modern infrastructures in the form of telecommunications, in the form of transport, in terms of like your LRT, MRT, BTS systems, which interconnects the various commuters within the city centers. Another similarity is these capital cities commands the highest earning capacity for its people working there in terms of the median gross income. Bangkok, for example, would command a higher earning salary than, for example, the second largest city, Chiang Mai. For Kuala Lumpur, it will also command a higher earning capacity compared to the second city, Penang. And in Singapore, of course, is a country by itself. What are other kinds of offerings that a modern city setting would offer as well? Food and entertainment, of course. You will find that in terms of the culinary scene, the Michelin Guide is in all three cities in the form of high-end restaurants and bars. Because the street food and hawker scene is so prevalent in these three cities, the Michelin Guide actually created an entire category just for the hawker food. In terms of entertainment, for all world-class acts like singers, like musicals, like circuses that do want to visit this part of the world, they would hit all these capital cities first. Now let's run a high-level comparison between the three cities in terms of cost of living and the working opportunities. I would like to qualify that I'm not going to delve too deep into the numbers and statistics, but just to give you a very high-level view on the overall picture. The first comparison is on the working opportunities and exposure, especially on attracting working expatriates into that city. Singapore leads in this ranking as it serves as the regional hub for a lot of industries, especially for highly skilled labor, for example in the manufacturing industry or in banking and finance, where it attracts a lot of top talents into the country. A lot of international brands and MNCs are actually headquartered here, whether it's just for Southeast Asia or even for APAC as well. For Bangkok and Kuala Lumpur, they are both part of a much bigger country, so you would expect the industries to be very different compared to Singapore. Thailand, for example, focuses on agriculture, manufacturing and services like your tourism and your hospitality industry. For Kuala Lumpur or Malaysia for that matter, it's on palm oil, it's on construction and different types of manufacturing. For example, in terms of automotive, in terms of pharmaceutical and also IT products. So they are both very different, but I will attribute these two countries in terms of their pool and in terms of exposure, it will be about the same for them. What about salaries? It's very similar. Singapore ranks number 1 in terms of the median Gross income, it is at 5,197 Sing dollars, which translates to 3,850 US dollars. For Kuala Lumpur, it is at 3,800 ringgit, which translates to about 800 US dollars. For Bangkok, it's roughly between the range of 25,000 to 40,000 baht, which is between 750 to 1,200 US dollars per month. What about food? Now let's compare the three cities. All three cities offer affordable food range from your hawker and street food to your meat-end restaurants, whether it's Western or local-based restaurants, and high-end restaurants and bars as well. In terms of the affordability, from cheapest to the most expensive, the number one being the cheapest, Bangkok leads the way. For a bowl of noodles from a hawker store, it costs around 50 baht. That's roughly around $1.35 US dollars. In Kuala Lumpur, it costs around 9 ringgit, so it costs around $1.90 US dollars. In Singapore, the starting price is around 5 Sing dollars. That's around $3.70 US dollars. Now let's compare a Western cafe for an all-day breakfast meal complete with coffee. In Bangkok, which leads the way again, is roughly around 400 baht. That's around 1080 US dollars. In KL, that will cost you roughly around 60 ringgit. That's around 1260 US dollars. In Singapore, it will cost you around 30 Sing dollars. That's around 22.22 US dollars. Let's talk about accommodation in terms of renting a one-bedroom apartment in each of the three cities. Now, I'd like to qualify for Singapore. It's actually really expensive. So the one-bedroom apartment in Singapore will be even smaller than the one in KL and in Bangkok. In terms of location, we're looking at a great location, slightly off city center. Well, the exception here is Singapore. You might have to look further because it is really that expensive to rent in Singapore. So in terms of ranking, the first would be Kuala Lumpur. You're looking at around 3,000 ringgit for a good location for a one-bedroom apartment. That works out to be around 632 US dollars. For Bangkok, you're looking at maybe 3 to 4 stops, BTS stops away from the city center. That's roughly around 30,000 baht, which works out to be about 800 US dollars. For Singapore, a very far away from city center location, one-bedroom apartment, the whole unit to yourself, is around 3,000 Sing dollars. That works out to be around 2,222 US dollars per month. I'd like to talk about the currency strength of the Sing dollars, baht and ringgit, and the purchasing power of somebody working in these particular cities. Earlier on, I talked about the working salaries. So in terms of Singapore, there's no dispute there. It has the strongest in terms of currency strength and purchasing power. Now let's talk about Thailand and Malaysia, or specifically Bangkok and Kuala Lumpur. If you look at this chart comparing the Thai baht versus the ringgit, the Thai baht for the last 10 years has been appreciating against the ringgit, yet the salaries are roughly about the same, 800 to 1,000 US dollars in terms of Bangkok and Kuala Lumpur. And that means the purchasing power for ringgit and for people working in Kuala Lumpur is getting lower compared to the people working in Bangkok, Thailand. What that also means is if the Thai baht continues to strengthen against the ringgit, you can convert more Thai baht into US dollars as opposed to less ringgit against US dollars. And that means the Thai people has a stronger purchasing power for more imported goods and also to travel out of the country. By the way, if you're interested in topics like this, Forex, and you would like me to delve deeper into such topics, comment Forex below in the comments so that I can then create more topics around this. Now, let's talk about business opportunities if you intend to be a startup in each of these three different cities. Well, as a business owner, of course, there are many kinds of qualifying factors you need to consider before starting your business. And I'm not going to go deep into that, for example, like the taxation, like the ease of doing business, and like networking in the right industry or not. But I'd like to point you to two main points here. The first one is introducing new concepts in each of these cities, and the second one is the scalability of your business. Let me bring you one relevant example. Coffee chains. Now let's start with Thailand. In Thailand, the homegrown coffee chain is called Cafe Amazon, and they have over 1,000 outlets across Thailand as of now, and they have also expanded overseas. For Malaysia, you have Zeus Coffee that only started in 2019, and 4 years later, by end of 2023, they have 300 over outlets, are doing really successful now across Malaysia, also a homegrown brand. Now in Singapore, recently, if you followed the news, called Flash Coffee, which is actually from Indonesia. They started in 2021. They expanded to about 11 outlets because Singapore is smaller, and they have since then closed their door just recently. And why? It's because the cost of doing business in Singapore, the rental, the manpower, and also in terms of scalability is a lot lower in Singapore. And recently, Luckin Coffee from China has come as well, and let's see how they do. But remember, these companies are actually people with strong financial muscles or big financial muscles, therefore they can grow into a chain. What about smaller startups? You want to start a new concept. Now, in terms of ranking, my personal ranking is Bangkok first, followed by KL, followed by Singapore. Now, why Bangkok? Well, when friend and I were in Bangkok sometime last year and we walked around the big mall Central World, for example, every other corner that we turn, even let's say in the H&M, we see a concept coffee stall or a tea stall there that there is a solopreneur trying out something new, and because that is able to survive and introduce something very different and unique from all the other coffee chains or other usual brands that you see, you can tell that this environment actually thrives for new business owner. So that's number one for me, followed by Kuala Lumpur, where we see some, but if you want to do business in Kuala Lumpur, it can be pretty expensive in terms of rental. I think manpower can be very managed. And lastly will be Singapore, of course, where rental and manpower kills you. If you even want to just keep one store surviving, just like us when we did our hawker store, it's not easy at all before we can even think about scalability. The last point I'd like to compare is the spectrum of living expenses in each city. What do I mean? For example, in Singapore, the north side, Yishun, west side, Boon Lay, east side, Pasir Ris, even compared to somebody staying nearer central like Ang Mo Kio or Toa Payoh, your living expenses will be pretty much about the same, because in Singapore it's pretty expensive and the cost of living in each of these neighborhood is roughly there. But if you compare to a different place like Bangkok, for example, the living expenses can be radically different depending on where you stay. You can stay off the city center quite a bit, but yet you get street food that's really, half the price compared to in the middle of Bangkok, or your living expenses can be 30-40% cheaper, and yet you can take the BTS, MRT straight into town, and that's where you can really manage your living expenses. Same as KL. KL is not as easy as Bangkok to manage your living expenses because it's generally more expensive, but let's say you go to places like Cheras, you can considerably cut your costs lower compared to staying in the city center. So in comparison, Bangkok followed by KL followed by Singapore in terms of spectrum of living expenses. If you like the hard numbers and the cost breakdown in the various cost categories like accommodation, like food, like transport, healthcare and all that, do check out our videos where we did extensive research on the ground for you. At the end of the day, it really depends on what you're looking for, the kind of living conditions and the standard of living you want. For example, in Singapore, you're looking for financial strength, stability and a future and purchasing power as well. You probably want to consider working in Singapore. And if you're looking for space, you're looking for interstate connectivity, being able to travel, take road trips freely, then Malaysia and KL is for you. If you're looking for places where it's interesting, different spectrum of living conditions, a lot of diversity, you're looking at Bangkok, where it offers a lot of high living and also very affordable living for you. So if you're somebody interested in living and working and perhaps wanting to start a business in any of these cities, I hope this video has given you some clarity and a few ideas around how to go about doing that. With that, I'm signing off. Thank you very much for watching this video. I'm John from the Corporate Breakout Couple. Do hit the like button and subscribe to join our YouTube family. See you soon!